Hi, hello everybody. Welcome to today's event. Um, my name is Maya. I'm going to be the moderator, and I'm gonna also welcome Ryan, who's going to be our ASL interpreter. Really quickly, I just want to let you guys know um, that uh, I'm sorry. I just want to really quickly point everyone to the community agreement that we have. More guidelines can be found on this link, then sending in the chat. Sorry. And I'd also like to note that if at some point you need to step away into a supportive environment, breathe, ground yourself, or talk through how you're feeling during this event, Kate, our wellness facilitator, will be available in this Zoom room. And here's that. Um, and I just want to thank everyone for being here. If you have any questions or if any of you guys have any like independent tech issues, feel free to message me independently. And I'm going to let our guest speakers introduce themselves. Oh, and just as
Great.
a heads up, this event is recorded. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, William. You guys are good to go.
That's okay. No problem. And actually, I've got to get that William thing out of there. My name is Bill. And I want to begin by just say to the caterers, the buffet lunch was fantastic. And I'm really ready to go here. So I'll just begin with a sort of a beginning, and then we'll proceed on. Hi, everyone. Welcome to, first of all, Art for a New Future and this bridging forward discussion about basically what we've learned over the past year and what's next. Let me begin by just giving a big thanks to Wendy, Jason there, I see you, and her team for making this virtual gathering of the Justice Arts Tribe possible. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Bill Cleveland. I'm speaking to you from Alameda, California, which is the ancestral land of the Ohlone people. When I'm not facilitating Hollywood Squares on Zoom, I make music, write books, and run the Center for the Study of Art and Community. And an important part of my work, our work over the past 3 decades here at the Center, at California's Arts and Corrections, and the William James Association, is in fact the subject of this conference. So let me begin by welcoming our panelists, Timmy, Châu, Stephen Hartnett, Lori Pitts, and Kyes Stevens. Before they introduce themselves, I would like to invite all of you to use the Zoom chat feature to share your thoughts and questions at any time during this. Now, let me begin by saying that the person I would most have liked to invite to be on this panel is my colleague Judith Tannenbaum. I know if she were alive today, her smiling face would be in one of those squares on our screens, listening hard and sharing her thoughtful insights. Now, despite the fact that Judith is not physically present, her voice is with us through her work as a poet, as a teacher, really as a personification of what it takes to do this work at the highest level with integrity and humility in the impossible landscape of the prison planet, which, as you all know, is a place where truth and beauty and trust and tenderness and vulnerability and color and sensitivity and choice and all the intangible qualities humans need to thrive are virtually non-existent. But through her teaching and through your teaching, she and you make these things available to students. In the process, they become creators with a chance to own a bit more of their unique story, which is an act of personal agency we all know is a precious thing on the inside. So yesterday I was looking through Disguised as a Poem, which is Judith's incredible book about teaching at San Quentin, and these words beckoned me to share with you. So, this is Judith. Over the weekend, I worked on a piece that began, "My whole life I have feared being strangled. When someone gets near my throat, I bolt," and ended, "When I was 14, that whole year, I had one strep throat, then another. For weeks at a time, my throat tightened and burned. It hurt too much to talk. Now I'm 40. I still want to lie without moving so I won't cough, to drink tea and be quiet, but I know I was put here to speak. And though it still hurts, I'm going to open my mouth, let the words out." So if she were here, Judith would probably have more questions than answers. And though she would be eager to see her students again, I think she would have a cautious understanding of something I'm sure we all know. We're not going back to the same place we left 13, 14 months ago. This last year has been a lot of things. Challenge, a struggle, a tragedy. It's also been a puzzle. How do you feed a fragile flame in a concrete box with a meager spark and a precious little oxygen from 1,000 miles away? And now, maybe tomorrow, how do you return to this once familiar place as a stranger with fresh eyes? As the plague has had its way, what has this place we call prison become? A hospital? A triage center? A tomb? What have we learned about ourselves and the souls we serve and the places and people and systems that hold them, and what does all this mean for our work going forward? So these are the questions that frame the conversation we're about to have. And I'd like to start by having each of our panelists respond to these questions, and then we'll open it up for comments and questions from you all. Before we do, I'd like to ask each panelist to introduce themselves briefly. And let's start with Timmy, and then go on to Stephen, Lori, and then Kyes. Timmy?
Thanks, Bill. I appreciate that introduction and for sharing that lovely and beautiful preface to this conversation. Hi, everybody. My name's Timmy Châu. My pronouns are he, him, his. I'm tuning into you from the Midwest, from Chicago, traditional homelands of the people of the Council of Three Fires, the Ojibwe, Potawatomi, and Ottawa, as well as the Menominee, Miami, and Ho-Chunk nations. A little bit about me: I'm the managing director of the Prison Neighborhood Arts and Education Project, which is a project where we run radical arts and educational programming inside Stateville Prison, which currently is a maximum security men's facility outside of the city of Chicago. And I am also co-founder and currently an advisory committee member of Dissenters, which is a newer youth-led anti-war, anti-militarist organization. Yeah, and that's a bit about me.
Great. Stephen.
Hi, everybody. I'm Stephen Hartnett, founder and director of a project called the Democratic Communication Workshops. We're based out of Denver, Colorado, and we take programming into men's, women's, and youth facilities where we merge public speaking, creative writing, and civic advocacy. We've been doing it in Denver area for 15 years, and before that, I did this kind of programming in Illinois, Indiana, Texas, Michigan, and California. So I've been banging my head against this wall for 30 years and have never seen such tremendous energy as we've seen at this conference and with you all. So I'm delighted to be here with all of you and hope to learn from all of you. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lori Pitts, and my pronouns are she, her, and hers. I'm the founder and executive director of Voices Unbarred. So we work out of the DC, Maryland, Virginia area. And our main goal is to amplify the voices of people who are impacted by incarceration. And we do that using theater, particularly theater of the oppressed and other applied theater techniques. So we work both inside prisons, helping our participants there create a performance around their personal stories and things that they want to advocate to change within the system. And then we also work with people who are formerly incarcerated to perform out in the community and advocate in front of policymakers and a larger audience there. We've been doing programming for 3.5 years, so we're newer, but as of next week, we will have worked with men, women, and youth. So I'm very excited to be growing, and I'm excited to be here with everyone.
Kyes.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kyes Stevens. I am the director of the Alabama Prison Arts and Education Project. We've been in existence for about 20 years, and the program started as fully rooted in poetry because I'm a poet, and then advancing into visual arts, the broader humanities, and fairly recently started the first ever Bachelor of Science degree program inside a prison in the state of Alabama. And we really focus on the art as pathway for allowing students to be able to identify where they want to go and what they want to do in their creative work, but also in their lives. And really try to dismantle a lot of the exclusionary practices that are established by higher education and honestly arts organizations that cut a lot of our students out of access to begin with. So happy to be here.
Thank you all for coming, and also to all of you who are attending the conference and coming to this session. I'll reiterate the questions I asked each of the panelists to respond to. Pretty simple. What have you learned this past year on the journey through the COVID cobwebs, and that will affect your work going forward? And I asked folks to try and tell stories, if possible. And then the sort of companion question is, and how will that affect your work going forward? So let's just go in the same order. I've asked each to speak for 5 or so minutes, and then we'll just open it up to everybody else to ask questions or make comments or whatever. So let's start. Timmy, you want to start?
Sure. Thanks, everybody. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen just briefly, just to share a couple pictures to share my, basically as the entry point of what I want to talk about today. Can folks see some pictures on your screen?
Yep. Great.
So these are a few snapshots of an event we hosted actually this past Sunday on Juneteenth. It was a mural making effort where folks from our community, formerly incarcerated folks who've actually been a part of our programming inside the prison, as well as artists and activists and community folks that follow and support our work here in Chicago, came together and actually painted a mural that was co-created and designed by some of our incredible artists that are incarcerated inside Stateville. It was a beautiful event. A lot of young folks came out, working with grassroots organizations across the city of Chicago. And these murals are actually going to end up, are put up at the DuSable Museum, which is a historic museum out in the city of Chicago, if anybody's familiar. But it was a great, I think the pictures are just beautiful pictures, and they kind of capture how our art, how these sorts of art projects can be a really powerful way of bringing folks together. It gives not just for our folks, not just to share the narratives and stories and political perspectives of our folks coming inside, but also as an entryway to bring folks throughout the community in the free world, as an entry point to learn, politicize, and try to build relationships across walls and systems that are really designed to isolate and mitigate these sorts of relationships, right? What's important about this, at the same time, this past Sunday, what we're currently experiencing at Stateville. Now, Stateville has always been a maximum security men's facility. What that means is it has historically housed folks who have been incarcerated and sentenced with long-term sentencing. And if folks do not know, Illinois, when we abolished the death sentence, that was replaced with life without parole sentences. And so most of the folks inside Stateville are folks dealing with long-term to life sentences and have historically been the artists and scholars within our program. So at the same time that this Juneteenth event was happening, we've been recently notified that the Illinois Department of Corrections will be instituting a reclassification of all of the Stateville facility from one of a maximum security facility to one of a mixed minimum security facility, in which this facility will slowly but surely be transformed to a facility that's only housing people who have sentences of 5 years or less, right? That means that a lot of the folks that we've been working with over the past decade since we've been in existence are now going to be transferred to facilities up to 4 and 5 hours away from the city of Chicago, where, for folks who don't know, that is where many and most of like the kind of programming is offered, partly because that's where many of the universities and grassroots community organizations are stationed, right? So this is and this was done without consultation with any of the grassroots organizations or even educational programs that have been offering services, essentially subsidizing these services for the state. And is really jarring, and it's going to have a really negative impact on some of the folks that we work with. And many of the facilities that folks are going to be transferred and shipped off to are facilities where there are no programming, right? Where it's intentionally in the middle of, rural places in Illinois where there is much less community, and it's going to be, much harder to build those relationships and offer programming to support folks with these sentences. So on the one hand, while this is being done under a progressive state legislator and progressive state government, it's being done under the auspices of reducing recidivism and supporting, focus on reentry. It's going to be a very high rehabilitation focused facility now, as we're told. What's happening in practice to a lot of the folks in community that we support there is now long-termers who have been historically at the bottom of all, bottom of consideration for all throughout the state, right, are now even getting pushed further away from access to resources and connection to community. So I tell that story, one, because I think for us as free world artists and advocates and facilitators, that art mural was designed by folks who are many of whom are dealing with life sentences, right? And, while this talk about reducing recidivism, and even while some of that on the one hand is good, on the other, there is no initiative that we are seeing from state legislators and political decision makers to address the immense harms of decades of tough on crime legislation, and that we saw through, Truth in Sentencing Act, many of which our folks are still living through as we speak, that now the terrain is shifting, and those folks who have historically been the most disposable, quote unquote, by society are even being pushed further away. So this brings me to kind of my lesson learned that I'll start with, is that, art for us has always been a powerful tool to tell people's experiences and stories. And as I'm sure many of the practitioners and folks here know, there's no denying that art, through these events, like I showed pictures, there's no denying that art has the capacity to shift hearts and minds, right? To plant radical seeds that push us closer to this world we're trying to build. But but for us, I think it's important to keep in mind, like, how do we know when these seeds will bloom and to what end, right? And what is at stake in the meantime as we try to shift culture and shift the political common sense toward justice, right? As an org that believes in the power of art, we also must reckon also with the way in which art is used by political decision makers, by the state, and by even nonprofit corporations to, in some ways, preserve the status quo. Examples of this is the way you might see more community murals popping up in an increasingly gentrifying neighborhood, or certain projects that Department of Corrections might be happy to support if it gives superficially an air of progress or reform. And so for us, the question becomes really, as the title of this is Justice and Art. So, for cultural workers and facilitators of cultural production coming from places of such extreme isolation, how do we know if we're getting closer to justice, right? How do we know if we're shifting culture in such a way that is actually serving the communities that are most directly impacted, and that are actually shifting the material conditions for our folks that we are working with inside? For us, we're an abolitionist organization, right? This is my last point. And so, all of our work, whether it's our arts programming or our think tank advocacy work or our college education program, we do a combination of those things. It's all about moving closer to building a world without prisons, and essentially moving to a world where, a world where justice art does not need to exist anymore. And yeah, so I'll leave it there.
Thank you, Timmy. And you make the point, probably, in addition to doing the work inside and outside, challenging ourselves with the harder questions involved in this complex world that we work in is a 24/7, has to be done all the time. Art making is not intrinsically positive or negative, and we have to be cognizant of that. Stephen, tell us a story.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Timmy. Well, I tell you what, first thing I want to do is I want to say, Bill mentioned Judith Tannenbaum. She was a mentor to me back when I was teaching college classes in San Quentin prison in the early 90s. If you go in the chat room, you can find a link to the magazine we make each year called Captured Words, Free Thoughts. Volume 17 was our quarantine edition, but in volume 16, we did a tribute to Judith and used some quotations from her book. So you can see a beautiful picture of Judith and a tribute to her in volume 16. But so now to get to Bill's questions of what you learned in the last year, I'm not going to tell a story. I'm just going to offer 4 themes that have really hit me hard this year. First one is appreciation. It's just been startling me. I know that you all feel this in your work every day, but especially during COVID, it's been striking to me how much the men, women, and youth we work with appreciate our efforts, how much their families appreciate our efforts. And it's just a nice reminder that the work we do, for me at least, has to start from a position of love and respect, right? That it's about mutual appreciation. The second thing that's really hit me this year is a sense of just how precarious our work is. I don't know about the DOC setups in the states that you are all working in, but in Colorado, it's been a nightmare, and it still is. So we're not yet back in person in our facilities, and we won't be until 2022. And the DOC, as a part of its response to COVID, as Timmy mentioned as well, is really kind of shuttling people all over the state, and they're doing it without a whole lot of transparency. And so we don't even know where half of our partners are anymore or where they'll end up. So I've been reminded, one, to begin the day with a sense of appreciation, but I've also been reminded too of just how precarious our work is and how delicate it is. The third thing I've been reminded about is resilience, of how despite these facts, you just got to keep plugging along. And that's what I loved about Judith. Judith was always clear that you just can't give up. You got to keep going. She even talked in a book about how sometimes it feels like banging your head against the wall, but so you just keep banging. But I don't know about you all emotionally and how you handle that, but I'm happy to keep banging my head against that wall if it means being able to move on for another day and to keep practicing resilience to work towards appreciation. So I see those three themes as related. And the fourth theme that's jumped out at me this year is a sense of collaboration. Because no one in my program in the state of Colorado could go inside a prison, in order to do our magazine, we had to rely on friends all across the world for correspondence. And so we were having paintings mailed to my home and poems were being sent to us. And that really happened through the Justice Arts Coalition and a number of your specific programs. And so we were really proud this past year to expand our network of collaboration by working with all of you. So for me, the lessons for the past year are appreciation, precariousness, resilience, and collaboration. Bill also asked us to think about Bill asked us to think about moving forward. I'll just say two quick things moving forward. One is that my program has had to now shift to all remote programming. So all of our people are delivering their content over computers to imprisoned men and women who are seeing us on video screens. So we've lost the human touch, at least until January of 2022. And as Timmy said, our entire prison system is being remade. One of our key sites was the Denver Women's Prison, which is essentially now just completely shut down to any kind of programming. So moving forward, we're gonna have to be nimble. We're gonna have to reimagine what we do. We're gonna have to reimagine who we do it with. So these are gonna be trying times, which is all the more reason to get that resilience strong and stay strong as we move forward. Thanks, Bill.
Thanks, Stephen. One thing that is kind of interesting, here in California, there is no access to any internet for any person incarcerated. So we have had to, in essence, at the William James Association, Lori's here, I see her sitting there, literally reinvent the correspondence school model. And I'm sure some of you also have gone through that. Lori, what have you got to tell us from actually my old hometown?
Yeah, well, I reflect a lot of what Timmy and Steve were saying. For us, as I sat down and thought about, what have we learned? I think because Voices Unbarred is so young, I really learned, or I feel like this time helped reemphasize some of our values and helped me label what I think is important. So for one of the things, for me was how important being together is, especially with theater and theater repress and creating together in that way where it's a lot of listening and just kind of going with the flow of what somebody said and being let's explore that. I felt like being apart and trying to do it in different ways lost a little bit of that connection and that energy. And it reminded me of one of our feedback forms from our very first session. One of the men we were working with said, you reminded me that I'm human and you helped me kind of recapture that. And so I've been reflecting a lot on that. That's okay, can we do that from afar when we don't have that human connection? So for me, that was emphasized how important that would be. But on the flip side, I did realize you can connect a little bit with people remotely because I liked what Stephen was saying about collaboration, because we also collaborated with the Justice Arts Coalition and other artists to create Correspond Arts. And so we were doing packets that were being delivered to the prison, and then they would send their work back to us and we'd give them feedback. And I was a little worried to create a theater packet that I was I don't know how engaging this will be, but I'll give it a try. I'd rather have something in there. And it made me feel really good because at one point we did verbatim theater. So if you're not familiar, basically you interview them and then you use that to create a piece. And so I had sent in questions and I wrote a piece based on their responses. And one of the women responded back, was wow, you really connected with me. And she literally said that word, you connected with me. And so that really highlighted that I was oh yeah, even from afar, even without this active connection, you can create community and still use the arts as a powerful tool to connect with each other, create change, explore together. So that was exciting. And I think for me, like moving forward, I think it will be very important to keep that in mind of like, okay, I can write some theater things into a packet. How can we think creatively to use those with people maybe who are in remote facilities that we maybe can't access or don't have programming, or people maybe in solitary confinement or something where you can't come to a course for various reasons. And I think also including more traditional theater into my work will be a piece of it, because when it came to writing down curriculum, I felt like traditional theater fit a little bit better than theater of the oppressed. So I kind of did more of a hybrid. And I liked a lot of what I learned. And I think I'll be taking that forward, because one of the pieces of feedback is that a lot of my participants want that theatricality. I think my style is like, let's tell your story. You're important. It doesn't matter what scenic design is behind you. But I think they want to feel like, okay, I'm on stage, I'm performing, I'm sharing something. So I think I'll incorporate a little bit more of that as I move back to in-person work. In terms of like, on the whole, how the field might change, I was intrigued because I did feel like I had a lot of people reaching out to me, prison staff being like, we just need anything, something. Do you have something? And so I am hopeful that they realize the importance of arts programming and what it can do. And so that hopefully while we wait to, or while we're continuing to work to change the system entirely, that hopefully there will be more access to arts in the meantime and access to these very important programs. But I think also this time and space helped a lot of people realize like that you can't just focus on direct service, because you might not have access to the prisons, to the people. So it's a time to think really creatively of like, what else can we do? How can we advocate in addition to this transformative act of bringing in the arts? And so I think I've just been reflecting a lot on all of that, of like working to change the system, both in the prison, outside of the prison, and using my knowledge to do that in different ways. Oh, you're on mute.
It's always interesting to me how when the world turns upside down, often some of the assumptions that form the core of what it is we believe and think about the way the world works really get challenged. And in the creative world, that's not a bad thing. So, Kyes, first of all, an apology for my mispronunciation of your first name. You're number 4 in the batting order here. Share a story or what you've learned.
Well, no problem on the name. It's an unusual name, so all good. All is good there. When I was thinking about how to step into the comments for today, after thinking about doing this work in Alabama for 20 years, I think I want to just start with, we chose to see COVID in a little bit of a different way, in terms of not perceiving our program as a victim in terms of what we can't do or what has been done to us by this circumstance, but to step into it from the point of opportunity and creative problem solving, and looking at how do we create more meaningful options for our students to engage in all levels of work. And you know, it's hard for me to just parse out the arts sections of our program, because it all intermingles at this point. We have people who started in poetry classes and then moved to visual arts, and then, you know, signed up for the pre-college program and now are working on a degree, and it all moves together. And part of the process for us is, one, having options. And so what has been a disaster of a year for everybody on so many levels actually turned into beautiful opportunity to step in to how do we create more ways for people to engage. All of us know that the numbers of individuals who participate in our program in relationship to the staggering numbers inside of facilities is pretty small. So we are making a really profound impact in this very tiny focused area. I and the team really stepped into how do we take this as an opportunity to let somebody else stick their toe in the water? And how do we do that in a way that does not put pressure on them, but is in some ways a communication of comfort and human acknowledgement? So we immediately shifted into we are doing correspondence classes, but also we developed a weekly newsletter. And that weekly newsletter is going into all current and former students inside of the Department of Corrections. So around 800 of our folks. But the Department of Corrections is also making it available to anyone who is in the facilities in Alabama. And the point of this is we get in our very intense and comfortable communities inside of the prisons. And we very typically work with individuals who are brought in by friends or colleagues or peers on the block or whatever, it's word of mouth. And we know that arts and education is not actually being made available to everybody. Part of this is set up by, exclusionary languages and actions that none of us intend, but invade our work. And so really stepping into this newsletter as the philosophy of how do we start again from square one to make every single person inside feel welcome. And that is a colossal step in terms of personal decision and pathway. And the other big thing that we have learned over this past year, and it's really what I have learned, right? And the being involved in the arts and corrections and the higher ed and prison for so long and seeing these fields emerge. And I may ruffle some feathers when I say this, but those of you on here who know me know that I do that frequently, and it is what it is. We exist and mimic in capitalistic models of greed and possession and ownership. We do this with all of our programs. Everybody is, trying to always qualify and value themselves by what they have accomplished, instead of what your students have accomplished. The students are where the focus should be. And that is not in the models that I think are really working against our success as a field. And so we talk about collaboration and partnership, but it's really, for me, stepping into what is the balance between the trying to find the funding, trying to get the publications, trying to have the public, the PR and all the things that we think go together and are needed, and blow that up and establish a new paradigm, and where we don't have to participate in the damaging processes that we are participating in order to survive as programs. And maybe that's a convoluted mess in saying that, but it has been a big focus for me in this past year. And quite honestly, and speaking with peers and friends here on this call, biggest hurdle is waking up every morning and wondering if I'm going to read another name of another student who has died inside. right? And so in thinking about those individuals and people who are our community and our peers, challenging myself to be better at not stepping into the oppressive systems that I think we are all participating in, and we don't know that we're doing it. Okay, that's good for me. Thanks.
Thank you, guys. So the way we organize this is that we ask folks our panelists to reflect. And now we would like to invite anybody out there in the audience to reflect in a similar way or respond or comment on what you've heard. I know all of you have probably had experiences relevant to this conversation. So, I mean, the overall frame is, what have you learned and how is that going to affect your work going forward? Anybody want to share? Unmute yourself and raise your hand and give a comment. I know you're out there. Don't be shy.
Maya has a hand up.
Okay, Maya.
Hi, everybody. I really appreciate all of your reflections, and I think I've learned a lot this year too, and I've also lately been really appreciating all the people I work with, all of the volunteers, and in the past year, so many people have reached out that they want to do something, and it's not like the fun stuff of going in and working in person with the people. It's been very impersonal what we're doing. Every week, my volunteers have been designing worksheets that we can send into the facilities. The facilities we're working with will not allow us to get responses from the people who are incarcerated. So it's only a one-way street, and it's very hard to be, to feel rewarded or to get that kind of affirmation that comes from knowing that somebody even got it. We're really like whistling in the dark here. But I appreciate my volunteers. They've been showing up every week. We've designed, I mean, it's got to be over 200 worksheets, creative writing and art. And every week they're excited about the next one they're going to make. And so that's really something I've learned to appreciate this year, is the people in this community who are doing this work.
Where's Maya?
Susie, you have your hand up.
Yeah. I just answered somebody's question. I work at the Justice in Education Initiative at Columbia University, and my role is to provide educational programming at Rikers Island.
Okay. Susie, Tanner.
Yeah, so I'm pretty moved by seeing Wayne and Bill and realizing that, like, it's been like 38 years since I've first known you guys who've been doing this kind of work. I'm tearful, right? Because we're still doing it and we're still persevering, and I guess Stephen was saying, I never knew Judith Tenenbaum, and I feel like I did because her story is everywhere. And I have been at times banging my head against the wall, and I just keep doing it. But that's not really what I wanted to talk about. As a physical theater company, we were robbed of the opportunity to be in person over this last year and a half. And we had to create we had to reinvent ourselves. Luckily, we do a lot of writing, and we have some really fantastic teaching artists who lead that, and then we use that to create performance pieces. So I dropped in the chat a link to one of the pieces that was created, uplifting words that the men wrote at California State Prison in Lancaster, and performed by men who are part of our reentry program, some of whom were with us at Lancaster and who were released, and who are now part of our ensemble. What I want to know from folks is how can we, those of us who do programs but have not been incarcerated ourselves, how can we ask formerly incarcerated artists to go back inside? The reason I'm thinking about this is because yesterday there was an Arts and Corrections presentation that Lori Brooks, William James shared, where there were formerly incarcerated artists talking about their experiences going back inside to teach. And it made me feel very committed, even more so, to doing that. And then one of our own who works with us, who is a very powerful advocate for everything that we're doing, and who was going to go back inside after being at Lancaster himself for 38 years or however long he was there. He sent me a text saying, I can't do this. I realize I cannot do this. It's too painful. It's too anxiety producing to go through the process that I would have to go through to get the clearance, to do the live scan, to be under the thumb again of the CDCR. I'm caught in I'm just caught.
I hear your quandary, Susie. Can I speak to it?
Please.
Okay, I have this quandary. The same group of people that spoke yesterday, who are people who were inside, who, for, decades, decades. There's an open space session right now. So in this year, my beloved Reggie Austin, who has this amazing new film out, he's talking about his experience. And I want to tell you, all right, I'm going to pull my ear out because I can't talk and listen at the same time, try as I might. I'm going to tell you that that people who have been told that they are a piece of shit, and that was something that was a quote from yesterday, right, by officers. They can find this amazing place where they can give back. They've been told every day of their sentence that they took a life or harmed somebody, and they therefore are not worthy of living in society. For them to have an opportunity to have this sort of like development as a human being in prison, to come to terms with what they've had, to be able to connect with their creative self as opposed to their destructive self, which, may be the same energy, to have a chance to give back. It's so powerful. It's so amazing. So, Susie, I want you to consider really opening up and having the space to connect with those people that you're thinking you might bring back in and support them. I mean, I really want us to have the support for these people as they go back in. I mean, Henry Frank, who works on staff for us and stuff, he talked about going to California Medical Facility, and he was sweating because he was there for shift change, so the officers are coming out and going in, and there's like this sea of green around him. And that's the color of the uniforms in California. Anyway, but he really embraces and loves this opportunity to give back. And I had so many other things to say, but Susie showed up before me.
Yeah. So Susie, just a thing, and I know you know this because you work with people on stage in theater, and some people can handle standing on stage. Some people can't, and I think it's an awful lot that one would ask a formerly incarcerated person to go back inside those buildings. But there are those who can and will and do an incredible job, and there are those who never should and never could. And so there's a lot of probably no's that I think you're gonna have before you actually end up But the other thing is, and I know Lori knows this, is it's not just like, okay, go in like everybody else. There's a nurturing, supportive process you have to go through with folks that are in that vulnerable place, because in some cases they will never know until the gate opens. And then, someone is going to go, okay, I thought I could do this, but I can't do this. So I have another question for my panelists or anybody else. One of the things that typically happens in conversations about this kind of work is it's probably one of the easiest places on earth to fall into what I will call the false dichotomies, which is good guy, bad guy stuff. And what I'm interested in is if over the past year, the upheaval has produced cracks or opportunities where formerly sort of intransigent, sort of stuck in the mud kinds of relationships with the systems that you work in, that you've seen them sort of shift and change, and that there's been maybe some learning on the other side. Stephen, I saw you shaking your head.
Yeah, Bill, I'm glad you said that. And I think what you just asked really ties back to what Kyes said, which is that all of us are asking the same question of how do we create student-centered programming that also is responsible with our funding streams? How do we worry about PR? And I don't know about Kyes' program, but I'm doing everything I do tethered to a university, which is also in crisis. So Bill, your question of, is the good guy, bad guy paradigm breaking down? What's interesting for me is as we think about prison activism, I'm also interested to say, how can that change the university I work at? So how can we change the entire higher education landscape? And what's interesting here in Colorado is doing the prison work is now bringing social justice, civic engagement into the university. So there is an opening for kind of reconceiving how our institutions work together.
Great. Anybody else?
Hey, yeah, I'll chime in on that. Stephen, sounds like you and I need to have some conversations. We are at Auburn University, and the university in the Deep South is going to be a very different structure than other parts of the country. And, we empower the tools that funding agencies ask us for. Okay, so people, in my opinion, we are using languages and frameworks to talk about and justify our work that always suggest that someone is less than. And we are doing this good thing. Whatever this good thing is, you can insert whatever outreach program out of a university, any program that's going inside to a prison setting, but we perpetuate that by being complicit when that's what funders ask for, and so we try not to participate in that. We don't force people to be in touch with us when they leave prison. It's a trauma. They have PTSD from that experience. While our program might have been an incredibly positive space and supportive space, when you ask someone who has lived through a trauma to step back in to that trauma, even though we think that it's for positive benefit, it's still a trauma. Now, if one of our students, former students or artists, comes to us and says, I would like to be involved and I would like to do X, Y, and Z, that's a different story. But we don't want to ask because there is a pressure that is unstated. And I think we have to move away from pressuring people and guilting people into doing something. If they want to present, we need to make a space for them to present. If they don't, that's fantastic.
Hand up, Timmy.
Yeah, I just want a quick point building off of what Stephen mentioned about the struggle of higher education, right? And something, I don't know if it's a opportunity or a new threat insofar as, now that we're seeing the growth of specifically university inside outside programs, right? Especially a lot of these big private universities, which, to remind folks, these are also corporations that are operating with massive, what are they called? The lots of money, right? And the growth of these programs inside facilities for the purpose of social justice causes, and oftentimes what can seem like good reasons and good intentions, which are in connecting students, scholars with folks inside. At the same time, we've experienced here in Illinois where you have universities offering college classes tied to no degrees, right? So how are these resources then actually supporting folks on the inside, once they're getting out beyond the courses themselves, right? And now the university can slap that on their department webpage as being a progressive university, right? So that, and so there's pitfalls there, right? And then we can talk about the growth of prison studies programs, right? Entire academic departments with careers based on studying folks in the inside. That should bring up some red flags, right? So I think for us, it's always been about also a point of getting resources to our folks inside, right? So there's ways that we can leverage those resources, and similarly keep an eye out on the way that these institutions in the free world are always finding ways to exploit the most vulnerable populations. So.
Thank you, Timmy. We have 3 minutes left, and I'd like to give our panelists an opportunity to just reflect, sort of a closing shot, evening news. So I'm going to go in the opposite direction we started out with. So Kyes, just few seconds of your reflection.
I'm not prepared. I appreciate everybody's comments and questions, and I think my closing thought is we need to have more panels and discussions where we dig into the very intense conversations that are associated with this.
Great. Let's see.
Yes,
Lori, I think you're next.
Yeah, I mean, I love what everyone has said. I think it's very important to always be thinking and rethinking about your role and what you're doing and how it impacts other people. And so I know with my work, I definitely try to always just center people who've been impacted and follow their leads. Who better to ask than somebody who's experienced it. So I love hearing this, and I want to keep learning and rethinking about every little piece.
Thank you, Lori. Stephen.
Just want to say thanks, everybody, for the energy. These are great conversations. I wish there was some way we could really continue this, and on an 8-hour conversation with really longer, more detailed feedback. Kyes, I'd love to. I put my email in the chat room. Love to connect with you to talk more. If anybody else wants to email me, my email's right there. I'd love to continue these conversations. I feel like I'm learning from all of you, so thank you.
Timmy.
Not too much to add other than just, I've frequently talked to some of our artists inside and even scholars inside. It's like, these are some of the most competent and amazing, incredible artists and thinkers I've ever had the opportunity to collaborate with. And oftentimes they'll tell me, look, I'm trying to get free. I'm not trying to be an artist stuck in isolation for the rest of my life. And so I'll just leave with that.
So I'll close by, first of all, thanking all of you for coming, and for our panelists for just your insights and your wisdom, and planting the seed of hopefully future conversations. My parting shot is, my sense is this is a field that has always been on thin ice. Thin ice work often doesn't have those long-term conversations, particularly about the hard issues, the core of which to me are the moral and ethical implications of the work. which to me are personified in the quality of how do we define quality, and how the people we serve, how the artists inside can help us define what the best way of delivering and making this kind of work manifest inside institutions can be. So thank you all very much. There's a lot more going on in this conference, and hope to see you all later.
I just wanted to quickly add that there are a few more events happening right now between our two big final performances that are going to happen at around 8 o'clock. I just want to add a quick schedule link if you guys are looking for more conversations happening between now and the really cool presentations by Theaterworks Project and the Judy Dorwin Performance Project's Dads and Kids program. Again, thank you so much for attending Bridging Forward. If you learned something new today, if today's session inspired you, challenged you, or taught you something new, please share your support for the convening if you can by making a donation. Funds received during the convening will be put towards compensation for the presenters, prioritizing increased honorariums for carceral system impacted presenters. Here's a quick link to that. And I just wanted to give another really big thanks to, Lori, Stephen, Kyes, Bill, and Timmy. It was great to hear everything that you had to say.
Adios.
Can I jump in and say that if you are interested, oh yeah, sorry.
Go ahead,
That's important. If you're interested in hanging out some more, connecting, you have more questions that you didn't get to ask during this panel Q&A, you want to share about something really exciting you learned during the course of this first day of the convening, you're like literally exploding with enthusiasm for something new that you want to connect with someone about, feel free to hang out in this room. It's just going to be a very relaxed space to connect. We'll probably go around, introduce ourselves, and share out something that was like a highlight of today's experience for you. Sorry if you can hear the ice cream truck, it's very loud. But with that, I'll pass it to Wendy to get us just chatting.
I was going to say the exact same thing. Such a pleasure. Thank you to all the panelists. Thank you, Bill. And yeah, we are here for the next, 15, 20 minutes or so just to hang out, or make your way over to the open space where I know there are activities happening over the next couple of hours. I'd love to specifically point out that I think at 7 tonight, there is a Justice Arts Coalition Art Links event, which is an opportunity to check out some new artwork by incarcerated artists in Jack's network. And so you spend some time looking at their art, engaging with their art, and then we ask that you pick a couple of pieces or one piece that really speak to you and write a letter to the artist, sharing your reflections, your feedback, your thoughts on that piece, and we will send that off to the artist for you on your behalf. You're also invited to create your own piece of artwork or a piece of creative writing in response to their work that we can share with them as well. It's a really valuable way to kind of connect directly with artists inside, and for them to feel like, to know that their art is touching people out here, is having an impact, and that just like any artist, no one wants to work in a vacuum, right? So that feedback and those reflections that they get really inspire and keep them going. So check that out. That's at 7, and that's it. I think if folks are going to hang out for a while, we'll maybe just give it a minute or two, take a little stretch, and then see who's still here, and maybe do some introductions and get to know each other a little better.
Bill, I'm fascinated by your setting. Looks like theatrical. Is it like either like a sound booth or
It's a recording studio,
a recording booth? Looks great.
and it's a closet.
So many people recording in their closets.
I think a lot over the last
A
year.
lot. Yes, a lot. Yeah, there's a specific disease that you get from being in your closet too long. Yeah.
There's a new Netflix film that I think is called, I want to say it's called Inside. And it was made by a filmmaker slash comedian slash musician who basically just captured his year spent in this one little room that he's turned into a studio. I watched it a few weeks ago. I'm going to find the link and drop it in here. It is absolutely phenomenal. Just an incredible feat of filmmaking and songwriting. He's filming himself singing songs that he's written. I can't actually explain it in a way that will do it any justice. I'm just going to say that you have to watch it, and I'm going to go find the link. And while I'm doing that, maybe Kenny and Sola, would you lead a round of intros and maybe a check-in just around what folks are kind of, what's alive in them and what they're carrying out of today's sessions?
For sure. Yeah, I mean, I think that's basically a really great question. If you could just introduce yourself with your name, your pronouns, where you're zooming in from, and yeah, like what are you carrying out of this convening today? What's alive for you? What is feeling really exciting for you, or is just like really present or sticking with you? And I can start. I'm Kenyan Sola. I use she, her, hers pronouns. I'm calling from the ancestral lands of the Lenape people in Philadelphia. And something that is really sticking deeply with me is, honestly, that last sentence from Timmy at the Spurgeon Forward event. About, yeah, like the quote from one of the folks that he works with about just like, this work is really wonderful, but I'm not trying to be an incarcerated scholar or an incarcerated artist for the rest of my life, and I'm trying to get free. And I feel like it's really helping me think about like, yeah, doing the work and working within the system at the same time as making sure that everything we're doing is pushing towards liberation for everyone involved in the work. And I will pass it to Arnaldo. I apologize if I mispronounced that. And feel free to just pass to the next person if you would like to.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I'm actually a little bit under the weather, so I've been kind of been hiding out here just listening. Yeah, I mean, I'm a cultural maker, and I have family and friends incarcerated, and have always, been trying to figure out how the walls unite us, right? Even though they seem to be impenetrable, but they're not. And it's, I'm trying to learn and listen to everyone. The sessions I've been able to log on have been really useful, really interesting. And I'm just here really to learn. I don't know that I've only been incarcerated for doing civil disobedience, for taking over buildings and forcing institutions to change their evil ways sometimes. But I do have friends who, for their politics, have been in prison for many years. So it's a really interesting, phenomena. The criminalization that our communities have suffered and are suffering. Right. I like to say that criminals have been criminalized. In other words, when you become incarcerated or do something that the police involves you, right? It's a whole new relationship to the state, right? And when we have a whole new relationship to the state, we have a whole new relationship to both its cultural products like prisons. Some of us have more access to them than others, and they're everywhere. I mean, Some of my family members can't even walk down the street without being assaulted by white people, by white men and police, literally. And sometimes when they see me making art and saying and putting stuff into poetry, they think it's craziness, right? And it probably is. But here we are, right? Because we're trying to put our heads together and imagine, share our dreams, and maybe one of us, some of us, or someone we don't know will pick it up and make it reality. Make those walls eventually disappear. For example, on the southern border, there is a hundreds of mile long double wall being built. And it's really a metaphor, right, for that we become a prison nation. Because the wall don't keep people out, the walls keep us in. And my vision is that those walls one day will become the world's longest, biggest mural in the world. And when we break down the prison walls, we'll send a lot of these artists. A lot of us will go to, and actually it's already happening where a lot of artists are already turning those walls into murals. And that's what I foresee doing with all these walls, that we will have one of the world's biggest mural making art movement in the world. And we have a lot to draw on from our indigenous ancestors to our current ancestors who are in prison, who are making art. So I'm here, to listen and learn, and I really appreciate and respect all of you who are going in to visit our incarcerated loved ones and making art together, making a difference, really, to break these walls inside of us and outside of us together. And I will pass it to, to Alden.
Yes, thank you. And thank you all for being here. I'm one of our event interns with Jack, and there's a lot twirling around in my head right now. I think a lot of the comments that Timmy and Kyes made in the last session are really resonating with me, and I think I'll be mulling over them for a few days. But I think in general, I'm really enjoying the balance of this conference, and that there are really hard, tough dialogues happening, but at the same time, we're making sure to hold space for ourselves and to hold space for emotion, both through our wellness room and different sessions that are happening. Like Kanya and Sola and I were in a TikTok dance session earlier. That was a lot of fun and just got us moving our bodies and still focusing on this work, but also prioritizing our bodies and mental health at the same time. And I'm going to pass it on to Susie.
Thanks. Hi, Susie Tanner. I'm the founder and director of Theater Workers Project. And I am zooming in here from LA County. Pasadena is the city, and it is the ancestral land of the Tongva people. And my pronouns are she, hers. And I am thinking at the moment about a workshop that I took from Kurt. It's got to be 6 years ago, where one of the questions was, how do you want to spend the rest of your life knowing you're going to die? I've mentioned this to you 2 years ago when I saw you in Santa Clara. And the image that evokes, connected to the men with whom we did this correspondence work during the pandemic, these men who I can't even imagine how they were surrounded by death and disease, and yet they decided to continue to participate in this program. And some would send us back their work saying, I'm sorry, it's late, I had COVID. And I'm gonna cry. And I didn't want to send you any paper that I had touched because I didn't want to infect you. And they would write us, how are you? They were concerned about us. And the deep humanity that of the people with whom we work inside and in the reentry is just filling me right now as I look at all of you on the screen, knowing that we're doing the same kind of work. And that's what I'm feeling and thinking of. And thank you, Bill, for spearheading this session today. It's just brought back so much commitment in me to continue to do what we do. And I will pass it to Kurt, who can maybe speak without coming on screen if you want, or there you are.
Thank you, Susie. You're very kind. I'm Kurt Tofflin. I'm the founder of Shakespeare Behind Bars. I've been working in prisons for 26 years. I've been locked out of the prison since March 11th, 2020. Had to create hybrids to stay in contact with the programs that I facilitate in Michigan, Kentucky, and Chicago. We lost one of our men due to COVID. All of the guys that I work with in all the prisons have had COVID. Some have lasting ramifications, health ramifications because of it that they're dealing with. First of all, I want to give my immense thanks and pride to Wendy Gleason, who I've known for a long time, and I'm so proud of her and her accomplishment with Jack, and then of course all her colleagues, because she's very modest and will say I'm not the only one. I know you're not the only one. We don't do it alone, but we need visionaries. We need great hearts. We need great souls. We need great belief in what it means to be a human being. And, so I stay off screen because I get emotional, and some people say they don't want to see a grown man cry. Well, it took me many years of work on myself to allow myself to cry. So now, as my wife says, you will cry if there's a commercial about a child or an animal, which is true. And I'm deeply, deeply heartened by the diversity of this conference and the new faces and the new energy and particularly the youth, because I am on the other side of that mountain, and thinking much more about my question number 4, and that's what's my gift to humankind, what's my legacy. And I love this last session in particular. It takes great courage for Kyes to say what it is that she says, but the beauty is she can say it. She can say it in our circle because we can take it. Like I said, I've been doing this 26 years, and I ask myself every day that I was doing the work, and even more so during COVID, why Shakespeare? Why Shakespeare now? I'm eager to get back in. I'm very worried about what I will discover when I get back in, because as all of you know who work in prisons, just being locked in prison is trauma enough, creates PTSD every day. What the hell did COVID do? I don't know. So I'm going back in, when I get back in, face to face, just to sit and to listen and to say, what do you need? Tell me what you need. Maybe the stuff that we've been doing, we're just going to throw that all out because it's got a shelf life, and I'm eager to get back and really challenged to figure out what can I be as a part of this journey into the biggest question of all, and that is, what does it mean to be a human being? Thank you. I'll pass.
Who do you want to pass it on to?
Yeah, I'll pass it on to Haley.
Hello, everyone. My name is Haley. she, her, hers. I'm one of the Jack interns for marketing, fundraising, an array of stuff. Currently, I'm in Capitol Hill, DC, with the Anacostan people, ancestrally lived. And I was like thinking about this, and I agree with everyone. I really just like am echoing what everyone is saying, where I kind of feel like so far today's been like a really great workout for my brain, because I've gotten to flex so many different areas of myself, whether that was like physical, like with movement, or creativity, or just like these conversations where I've had a chance to like sit down and really just listen and participate, and not be go 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 all the time. And so that's been really relieving in a way that I didn't think it would be, but it's been really good so far. And I hope that was all the questions. I feel a little dazed right now, so but Robin, do you want to go?
Sure. Yeah, no idea what the questions are. I use she, her pronouns. I am based in San Diego, Kumeyaay land. I have the great privilege of working with our awesome interns. Well, lately it's been all day, every day for this project of ours, but yeah, I'm glad to get to do that. And I teach visual art in 2 prisons down here, and like all of you have been locked out since March. We're hoping to go back in July. But like all Jack things, I think at least after part of day 1, we've been able to kind of translate the energy of some of our more intimate gatherings into this larger scale. And so that has been really great to see new faces, and to be able to present new faces, like Kurt was mentioning. So yeah, it's just nice to, I mean, I've been on my phone all day doing behind the scenes stuff, but it's been really great to see how awesome the sessions have been so far. So I'm just excited for the rest. And let's see, I'll pass it to, is it Mate?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. So yeah, my name is Matt Refik. I'm based in Colorado. I facilitate art projects at ADX Florence. And so I've been locked out since March of doing any facilitating, but my partner in the program is actually a employee of the prison. So we're able to continue the projects, and I just do my part through correspondence. I've been really interested in how people have been maintaining their programs through COVID. The facility I work in is a supermax facility, so everybody's in 23 hours a day of isolation. So for years, I've been really interested in how isolation is affecting art making practices. So over COVID, I had the opportunity to really explore isolation in my own art making practice. And that's what I've been bringing back, like through correspondence, is how the isolation is affecting everybody, and then learning a great deal about how their isolation is affecting them in their creativity, and trying to bridge the gaps of how I can't go in and bring the art out anymore or make art projects with them. So I've been trying to create ways to bring the artwork out and have art shows out here and still keep the narrative alive. And yeah, it's been really interesting learning other people's experiences with how COVID has affected their programs and how that's going. So yeah, I appreciate everybody for sharing. And I'm not sure who hasn't gone yet. I can't see the names very good on my phone, but if somebody wants to just jump in.
Jump in for one brief sec, because our planning team has a check-in meeting that's going to start in a minute. So a few of us are going to hop off for that, but I'd really like to invite those of you who don't have to deal with all the behind the scenes of this to stick on here if you'd like to continue chatting. Haley, who's here with us, can be the host and keep the room open. Is that okay, Haley? Did I just volunteer you, or did you already know that I was going to say that?
No, it was fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just for maybe a few more minutes, but I'm just so grateful to all of you for sticking around, for spending a little bit of extra time. And I'll pass it to Bob before I go. You're on, Bob.
Oh, thanks, Wendy. I just wanted to say thanks to Wendy. Hi to the Wednesday night people. I'm still new to all of this, and I'm loving it. So thank you for I don't know, you're giving me life. I appreciate it to everybody, and I hope I can give it back tenfold. So thank you.
Bob, you want to let people who aren't Wednesday night people know what happens on Wednesdays?
So it's amazing. I don't know, there's usually 15 to 25 people. We just kind of talk for an hour and a half. And I've met people from everywhere, from all walks of life. Mark, we really appreciate what you add to the program. I feel like I'm in a community, and I really never knew what a community was. I have a large family, et cetera, but it just feels right. I don't know, I've become dependent on it. So sorry, Wendy, I didn't give a good answer, but there's some enthusiasm there. I guess I can say that part. Thank you.
Well, Bob mentioned me, so I guess I should go next, right? Yeah, my name is Mark Dotson. I had 25 years in prison, got out August 4th. While I was in prison in 2001 or so, I was in isolation in Wisconsin. Spent 5.5 years in a closet, and I created an art exhibit 20 years ago during that point in time. And I've been blessed by Justice Arts Coalition to give a presentation, and that's kind of going around, and it's really blowing up right now. As far as here in town, I'm working with a theatrical group that's going to be putting together a presentation, and we'll be going forward with that. I have a book that correlates to all the artwork, and hopefully that'll get published. If anybody has any ideas on that, the guy I'm working with now, he's just dragging his feet. But yeah, the thing I'm taking away, and it's really just the underlying theme of everything that's happened, that happens with the DOC anywhere, is frustration. And the fact is, they get away with a lot of stuff because they use the term security threat. If there's something they don't want to do, it's a security threat. And that's really the where it needs to be attacked, those policies. What you can't just keep on saying everything's a damn security threat. There needs to be a tightening up of the reins in that particular area, so that there are actual guidelines that we can all look at and say, okay, you're right, that is a security threat. That meets the parameters. But you can't just carte blanche go around saying, hey, security threat, security threat, security threat. And with that, I'll pass it over to William.
Yeah, so actually, thank you. I got to go too. But I just wanted to leave with a thought, and it's more of a conundrum than a thought. So I liken what we've been through in the last year with regard to criminal justice system and the prison system, et cetera, is a place that is, obviously renowned for its poor nutrition. And that's the metaphor. Starvation of the soul, starvation of the heart, starvation of the mind. And then it's basically gone into ultra starvation. And so this is the challenge I think we have, which is when people are starving, the definition of success is, here's a piece of bread, here's a piece of cheese, let's get you through another day. But my vision for what we're up to here is not just saving lives, but giving people the capacity to grow themselves inside at the highest level. And so I guess the title of my metaphor here is The Dangers of Do-Gooderism. The dangers of do-gooderism basically is who is challenging the assumptions that go with good intentions by people on the outside trying to work on the inside. And the only way for that because that's a conundrum right there, is how do you know? And the only way I know is to combine good intention with accountability. And accountability is, hey guys and women in there, why don't you let us know what things are working for you and what things are a waste of time. And you know as well as I do, they'll tell you. And we may be shocked, but I think it's important, and my guess is one of the things they're going to tell you is, if you turn me on, don't leave. Don't have a 6-week workshop and then get out of town and go somewhere else. You know, that could be life or death for somebody. And so, there's a lot of different models of programs and there's a lot of different ways of doing it. But my sense is, if you're gonna have to do that time and you find something that's saving your heart and your soul and your mind, you don't want it to be a cute little workshop. You want it. You need it. You have to feed that habit. And my sense is that we've just come out of a starvation moment, and it's very hard to say, how good should we be? What are our standards here for doing the best we possibly could be? But I think it's what we have to do. Thanks. All right, I'm out of here. Good to have talked to seeing you all.
Thanks, Bill.
All right. All right. Bye-bye.
Beth, Mary, and I think Kelly, if any of you want to speak, if you haven't already, feel free to. We're just here talking for a little bit. So,
Beth, you go first, Beth.
Hi. I have been teaching over 30 years artist book projects and printmaking in prisons in California, both with men and women. And last time there was a conference in San Jose, I had Henry Frank be my assistant in the class, in the conference, the way he was always being in my class on the inside at San Quentin. So at the end of the class, I told the students they could keep their needles, which are about that long, and they're hard to find on the outside. So I said to the students, you could keep your needle if you want. Well, Henry had a panic attack. He went into PTSD because he has to count those. And, we had quite a time after class where he explained to me that was a real trigger for him. It brought him right back to prison where, oh my God, the needles aren't going to be counted. Everybody's going to get strip searched. And he couldn't help it, even though he knew this was a class on the outside. But it said so much to me about how much I rely on and rest on the shoulders of the guys and women on the inside who helped me run my class. There's nothing I could do without them taking the risks that they have to take to make the classroom work. So anyhow, it's a kind of courage that they bring that makes the success possible that I think is important to acknowledge. And I'm Beth Thielen, she, her, the Monachi tribe in Fresno. Thank you.
Anybody still here? Hello, nice to see everybody. I'm Beth. I have been involved with this program with music in prisons for a long. Choir inside. Image behind me is the choir of men incarcerated with people in the community that come in and sing with the men. And so, yeah, I just was and I can share some of the stuff that I've done. I've finished a manuscript of a book I've been working on for 10 years called Freeing Silenced Voices, Music Making in U.S. Prisons. So that's going through a formal review process. And I'm right now, as I'm taking a break between things, making corrections because I used footnotes instead of the author date style. So that was a big, huge piece of humility pie that I'll have great stories to tell my graduate students about. You think you know what you're doing, and then, yeah, no, you don't. But it's been really hard because we haven't been inside since March 3rd of 2020. The man that was the warden at the prison since 2015 was the most progressive warden probably in the whole United States. And then he retired unexpectedly in May, more than likely because he rubbed many of the DOC folks the wrong way because they prefer what I think it was, Mark, didn't you mention security threat? Yeah. But Jim McKinney's view was, hey, if I show you respect, then you'll show me respect. And we had a college and prison program. We'd bring over 300 people into the prison, many who had never been in a prison before, and it really broadened a sense of social awareness. But here in the state of Iowa, about 7 weeks ago, 2 men incarcerated at the Anamosa prison killed 2 staff members with some some tools that
Hammers.
like hammers and things. Did you hear about this, Matt?
Yeah, I did.
So anyway, you can imagine the pushback that's happened across the Iowa DOC from that. So I'm back at square pretty much -50, trying to reestablish relationships with the prison staff. So in July is when they're going to allow family members to come back in person for visits. That's phase 1, and phase 2 will be volunteers coming back in. So we can't start any kind of inside programming until we get to that phase 2 of allowing community people back in the prison. But in the meantime, I've been meeting with the outside choir members. I teach a class called Peace Building, Singing, and Writing in a Prison Choir, and my students from the university all had pen pals with people that were in the choir, so they were writing letters pretty much through the Core Links electronic system. So I got a little bit of connection through that, but as far as how they're doing. But most of the men in the Oakdale prison got moved to other facilities across the state. But we have probably 100 or so men across the Iowa DOC that have been in the choir. So really the next step is to do whatever kind of underground support for reentry that we can. Some of them have life sentences, and Iowa has life without parole. So there are a number of them that have those extremely long sentences. But anyway, any suggestions from Matt or from Mark are welcome. Or anybody. I haven't met Bob.
I don't know if I mentioned, but I did a lot of my time in Iowa. I just got out of there August 4th. I was there when they had the big breakout in Fort Dodge. Yeah, it cost me being a parent to my daughter. I took my parental rights because I couldn't get out in time.
So you were in Fort Dodge. Is that the only prison in Iowa you were in?
Oh, no, I've been in all of them almost. Fort Madison, Anamosa. I knew Lorraine Schulte and McFarland real well. I did a lot of time there. And Terry Dudley, the guy that killed himself after everything, because I know what's happening. It's group punishment now. They're gonna punish the whole population for what happened.
Were you ever at Oakdale, Mark?
Oh yeah, I've been through. I've never been assigned to Oakdale, just going through receiving.
Okay.
I went from Wisconsin to Iowa in 2005. I got out 2018, and I don't know, I met a girl, everything was going good, and we started a family, and she flipped out, and it brought a whole bunch of stuff in on us, and in the process of trying to keep her from killing my unborn child, she said she's going to kill herself. So I stole a truck to try to go find her, and that sent me back. And it's just, yeah, it's been hell.
I'm so sorry. Where are you based now, Mark?
I'm in Iowa City.
You are? Well, please give me your phone number. That's where I'm in Coralville.
Okay, yeah, we should get. Yeah, I'm working with Jody Hoblin and Ron Clark, the people who started Riverside Theater.
Oh yes.
Yeah, we're working on a presentation right now, and I'm working with John Elderbrick on the book publication. But guys, I'm looking at different options now. He's just been way too inconsistent. He doesn't keep, it's just, it needs to be out, and so I'm gonna be looking for other.
Yeah. Are you involved in Inside Out Reentry?
Absolutely.
Cool.
Yep. Yeah, Michelle Hines and Rich Mathias and all them. Good friends.
We've collaborated a lot with that organization as far as it goes.
Well, if you have a pen, I'll just give you my number now if you want.
Yeah, I'm ready.
It's 319 512 6584.
Great, Mark. I'll send you a text.
Awesome. Yeah, the DOC here in Iowa, you know how the CO union loves to just blow everything out of proportion and get their way every chance they get. And if they do it this time, it's going to set some stuff into policy that's not going to be reversible for a long time.
Yeah. Are you involved maybe with the Iowa Freedom Riders? That might be another space for organizing to support.
No, I haven't. But I do think some of the guys that go to Inside Out may be involved with them.
They're meeting, I think it's every other Thursday at Chauncey Park outside. And they got started after George Floyd's murder last May. They were some of the people central to, I don't know if you were in Iowa City last summer or not, but they were helping coordinate a lot of the protests.
Yeah.
So
I was watching it from a cell in Fort Dodge.
Wow.
So yeah, and then when the lockdowns and everything started, talk about starving you to death, and the stuff that they bring you to eat, it's just horrible.
I'm so sorry. It's awful.
It's life. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I started a art exhibit roughly 20 years ago inside prison, and it just came about because I couldn't stand them getting away with treating me and my friends like that, and just getting away with all the corruption and everything. And I just made up my mind, one day I'm going to get out and I'm going to tell people what the hell's going on in here.
Yeah.
Because apparently they're doing a real good job of keeping it from the public, but they don't hide anything from us. Right. They do it right. They'll try to get us involved with doing something, Yeah, I mean, at Anamosa, most of the COs there have construction jobs on the outside. Then on the inside, I was working in the Braille shop. My friends were in the custom wood, and every Monday, my friend that did inventory would have to come in there and say, "Look, I don't know where this stuff is gone." Well, I do, but it's gone, and I'm responsible for it. Now what? And they just had, and the bosses in there just, "Oh, we'll take care of it." But what would happen is they come in there and they steal nails. They still do. They steal nails. They steal boxes of hinges. They steal anything they need for their projects. And they take it out into the world, and they can undercut their competition and all that.
Gee.
Oh yeah. Another thing that can be observed is every quarter, wherever they redo the budget and everything, you can see COs pull back their cars up to the load dock at Central Canteen and Fort Dodge, and they'll come out with just armloads of stuff. Because you know how it goes. If you got a budget, you gotta spend every bit of that budget, or you're not going to get that same amount again. You know, so they make sure that they get rid of everything they bought with that particular budget, even if it means walking out the door with it.
We've got to, you know, just got to make this more clear. Is your book about this content, or is your book more of art? What's the content of the book you're working on, Mark?
Bob could tell you, but no, it's yeah, I'd have to. It'd be really good if I sent you that presentation. I mean, I got all my stuff hanging up, but it's all encompassing. I mean, like I said, I was working on it for 20 years, and I feel like I hit the mark on every single topic, whether it be personal or social. And it, you know, it breaks down some facts and figures in some of the pieces. And it, basically, after I got through doing the pieces, I ended up writing a description for each one, and that ended up being a book. And in the descriptions, that's where I put a lot of facts and figures. I name names. You know, you're not going to live in obscurity now. I'm going to let people know what's going on in here. So,
well, I think we just need to. We really good to have the talking points so clear and really get the word out to a lot of the local. There've been a lot of people in this community that have been into the Oakdale prison that are aware of. I think they're really interested in wanting to make changes, but they just don't know. I mean, they don't have the inside information that you have. Nobody knows what you're saying about, except, you know, people like Harold Searcy and some of the other folks that have been inside. But just the us and them separation of not people who have not been incarcerated don't know what's going on. They really don't.
I know it's this flabbergasting, you know, for somebody who you know easily sees all this going on, and then to think that God, people in the public have no idea.
Yeah,
I call it communist USA inside prison walls, because you know America doesn't exist in there. The Constitution does not exist in there. The free market does not exist in there. You know, you might as well be on the moon in there.
One time I had one of the prompts for songwriting was, if you were going to rewrite the national anthem from the perspective of someone who's incarcerated, what would you write about? And one of the men in the choir wrote a song called Whispers from the Dawn. And at the practice for the concert, so this was just a dress rehearsal in the Oakdale prison gym, Dave Southard, who's one of the activity specialists, was there in the back. And the man who wrote the song talked about the prompt for the song. And after everyone left the gym, Dave Southard comes up to me and basically tells me that we cannot have an introduction like this because we can't be basically critical about the United States, because he's been deployed to Afghanistan, and lots of, you know, there are a lot of veterans, and, you know, it's like, and it was so early in the program, I couldn't like speak out against him because that would have possibly cut down the whole project. But I remember so many of the men in the choir, like, Mary, that was not his place to be telling you that. We ended up, it was just the introduction to the song, but it was just an example of, a small example of censorship.
Well, I tell you, Warden McKinley, he really was. I didn't realize you were from Iowa until you said McKinley. Yeah, I mean, McKinley was, like you said, he was probably the most progressive warden in the entire country.
Yeah.
He was there at Fort Dodge with me for 2 years. I was in the leader dog program there. So yeah, the picture behind you stirs a lot of memories, because, you know, we used to have leader dog productions in the gym, and like, I don't know, it's pretty cool. Because I don't know if you know Carol, the lady that runs the leader dog that program.
I'm not sure I met her, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, she's kind of goofy. So, you know, that's how our productions would go. You know, we did Star Wars one year and had our dogs dressed up like Darth Vader and Yoda and stuff, you know.
Oh, that's awesome.
And then we'd come out and have a little.
This man right here, that I don't know if you can see on the top left, can you see, did you know Shane Kendrick? he wrote a song called the prison. What was it called? Puppy Blues. Prison, which was basically this. If I could, I don't know if I have power to share my audio. Oh, I do. I can play the song for you. He wrote the funniest song in the world about dogs in the prison, how they never got arrested, but here they are all incarcerated.
Yeah.
Hilarious. I could play a little bit of it if you want to hear it. It's one of my favorites. So yeah, Jim McKinney, he's in Austin, Texas now, and I haven't had a chance to talk with him, but I send him emails occasionally because I don't think he wants to tell anybody why he, retired so suddenly. It was May of 2020.
I know why.
Yeah,
I actually know why. It was actually some inmates that jammed him up.
Really?
Yeah, because there was a fundraiser that involved hamburgers and stuff, and the inmates that were organizing it didn't do what they were supposed to do with the money, basically. And in order to make up for that, Warden McKinley broke procedure and just brought everybody their stuff, and that was basic. There's more details to it. My friend Jerry Cole, he was there. He's the one that was telling me about it. But yeah, the inmates got him jammed up, and because he broke policy, that gave the DOC an opportunity to put the screws on him, and they've been trying to for years.
Yeah, because the other story was that that somebody had COVID and he wasn't following the protocol, and she was moving around the prison and potentially spreading it. And this was so early. This was May of 2020 when that happened. So I'm surprised because I don't think they were doing any kind of cookouts. Was this something that happened before COVID?
Yeah, it was right before it.
Yeah.
Like I said, my friend Jerry Cole, he knows the details of what happened. He knew some of the people that were on the inmate council too. I mean, but breaking protocol, what CO was it?
Right.
I mean, at Fort Dodge, they were blatantly disregarding it.
It
was ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. It's very ridiculous.
And we're sitting we're in a cell house that's been deemed clean, and they put people in there and give them cellies that have just been possibly exposed. They were in a cell with another person that got it, so they take them over here and put them in another cell with somebody else. What are you doing?
It's crazy. It's crazy. Okay, let me give you a little bit of joy here. Can you hear that? Too loud?
They sent me to this prison when I was much too young, but I ain't never done nothing to land me in this pen. I'm stuck in Oakdale prison. My tail is dragging low. When I hear those keys a clanging, I hang my head and moan. Now when I was just a puppy, my mama told me, son, always be a good dog, don't ever bite no one. But I bet a man on his little toe just to watch him cry. Now I walk up and down these hallways, and all I can chase are flies. Well, I bet there's rich dogs living somewhere outside these bars. I bet they're eating T-bones and riding in nice cars, but I know I had it coming. I guess I can't be free, but I can hear those coyotes howling, and that's what tortures me. Well, if they freed me from this prison, if the choice to leave was mine, I'd move it on a whole lot further down the line, far from Oakdale prison. That's where I'd want to stay, and I'd sit down with them coyotes and howl my blues away. serious. This song is just for fun. We love our pups at Oakdale. We wouldn't hurt them. We pet them and we treat them. And we hope they always stay. Hey, they don't judge or look down on us, and they melt our blues away. Now there's a man deserves some credit for the programs here today, from the puppies to the music and many other things. So thanks to Jim McKinney for everything you do. We appreciate the efforts of you and your whole crew. Yeah, we appreciate the efforts of your whole doggone crew.
Thanks for listening. I'll give you a call. I'll send you a text, Mark, and then we can stay in touch. And I'm hoping that the outside choir members are going to meet in July, like at a park, and sing. And it'd be great if you're available to join us and just, connect.
Yeah.
Haley, thank you so much for hanging out and letting us stay in the room for so long. There's Kurt Toplin. Hi, Kurt.
Of course. Thank you for playing that. I wasn't expecting that, so that was nice.
Yeah. Awesome.
All right, everyone.
All right.
Bye.
Thanks, Haley.
Thanks.
Bye.
Love you, Mary. Thanks, Mark.